which you can use to align left, right, center, iframes as well. The same thing, iframe, SRC, whatever source you're putting it out, and then align is equals to left, align is equals to double quotes right, things of that sort, and you'll have the position to play around. I hope you tried that. If it still didn't work, let me have a look at your code and then probably I can help you out. Okay, so you did try. So did it work? You've sent mine. Okay, I'll talk to the team and I'll try to have a look at it. So everyone else, I hope everyone else has submitted their assignments. I wish to have a look at it. I will look at it and get back to you. But the first thing I want to start off with is, if you have any questions, let me know and we'll clear it out first before we start today's session. Chaitanya asks me a question. Using embed options we have for maps and videos, is there no option for audio? Any specific reason? There is no such thing as there is no option of embedding audio. It's just that I have not shown you an example because it's not widely used in the market. I have not shown you an example. But yeah, you can embed audio files from an external web page as well. For giving you an instance example, you can open this website called soundcloud.com, and once you log in into that, it's a free account you can create. Once you create and log into that account, you have an option just like I've shown you in YouTube and Google Maps, how you can just click on the share option and you'll get a embed code of iframe. In the same format, you'll get a embed code from that, which is exclusively for audio. You can play that in an external website. You can take that iframe script, put it up in your website, and you can play it. So we just not shown it because it's not commonly used, but yeah, it can be done. Any more questions? Please feel free to ask. I'll answer your questions for one more minute before we get started. You were unable to access yesterday's class recordings. Okay, so since we moved to Zoom, the files have turned out to be super heavy, it seems. So it were in the GBs and GBs of it. So the team is working actively on compressing it, because even if it's in the GBs, we can upload it into the server, but the problem will come from your end because you just watch another class and your whole bandwidth is lost. So you'll not be able to attend today's session. So we are working on compressing it to the minimal as possible so that you can access it without burning your entire broadband. So yeah, I hope you will be getting access to all of them pretty soon. There is this process streamlined, so yeah, that shouldn't be a problem. Embedding audio by URL Rahman, I have answered that same question exactly as of this point. I've tried autoplay with my audio, it's not working. So autoplay with audio will be an issue with certain browsers. They don't support it. Let's say this Chrome latest extension, by default there is a option in the Chrome settings and Firefox settings where it says, which is automatically enabled by default, that do not autoplay audio files. So that is what puts out a restriction on majority of the browsers. You can override it either by going into your browser setting options and changing it, or you can override this entire process by writing a small line of JavaScript. Um, so that's two of the ways by which you can achieve the autoplay with your audio. So yeah, any more questions? Embedding audio by URL Rahman, it's the same thing, right? Soundcloud.com, create an account, get in there, find an audio that you want to embed, click on the share option, find the embed link, and you're good to go. It's working in Internet Explorer. Exactly, that's what I'm saying, Pawan, that it works with certain browsers. It doesn't work with certain browsers because they have a preset setting stopping such activities. So yeah. You can just Google how to remove autoplay restriction from Google Chrome, and you'll find the setting to which you have to turn off in order for that to work. Uh, if you're able to do that, it'll work fine. Yeah, you have a BG sound tag too. What the point about today about sessions that we're taking is that since we are super fast tracked with the whole UX front, because it's just for you guys to be able to understand the base concept of it. So we're not getting into all those detailed tags. See, HTML itself is a course that probably we can teach for a month in total, but keeping the time constraint in mind, we are forcing to only give you the top priority ones. Can't we add text animations using HTML on our websites? Yes, you can. You can give text animations, but animations come under CSS and JavaScripts. So there are certain libraries that you can embed, include, and you can get the animation parts into your websites. We'll cover that. We'll cover that in the coming sessions. Any more questions? We'll start. If you have no more questions, just say no more, and I'll start today's session. Great. A lot of you have said no more. So let's get started with today's class. All right. So I'm going to share my screen. Are you guys able to see my screen? Great job. So today we are going to look at CSS. Okay, so I've mentioned briefly about CSS in our previous sessions. I've told you that it stands for Cascading Style Sheets, and it's used for beautifying web pages and all that cool stuff. How many of you remember any of it? Or if you want me to get started from the beginning, I will. How many of you know that Cascading Style Sheets is CSS, and there are three types in it? That is internal CSS, external CSS, and inline CSS. So these are some things that I've covered in our introductory session of that example.com instance. So if you guys are good to go with that, I'll quickly brush that up and we'll go forward. Okay. Great. So I see a lot of people have said yes to that. So I believe you guys are on the better front of understanding it. So good job. So we'll get started. So I'm just going to open my code editor. So here what I'll show you, the first thing is how you have to write a simple CSS code, okay, without any syntaxes, without actually getting into the real-time thing. I'll just show you how you can write by default, okay? So irrespective about whether you're writing internal CSS or external CSS, the code structuring is going to be same. For inline CSS though, it's going to be different, okay? So in CSS, we have three ways of writing it. First one is called inline CSS, where we are writing properties for a particular HTML tag alongside with the tag itself, okay? So that's called inline. So that's why we say it inline, that is we are writing it on par with the same tag itself. Okay, so that's a complete different scenario. Okay, the second and third aspects are internal CSS and external CSS. Okay, so these are cases where we are writing our entire amount of CSS code in one place. Either we are putting up that in the head tag of our HTML file, or we are putting that up into our external CSS file and linking that file to our head section of our HTML file. Okay, so either of these cases, either it is internal or external, we have to use the same syntax that we are going to discuss right now. Okay, so for that to happen, I'm just going to quickly write a small HTML page. Follow along. I'm writing up my opening HTML tag, my closing HTML tag. I'm writing a small head tag, closing head tag. Okay, inside which I'll give this a title. Okay, and the title is going to be CSS intro. Okay, and inside the body tag, I am going to write a bunch of things. Closing of the body tag here. Inside the body tag, I'm going to write a paragraph which says this CSS thing is so cool. Okay, so I've written something pretty decent. I'm going to go ahead and save it. I'm going to my folder, and I'm going to say this as intro CSS, and I'm going to save the file as .html. All right, I'm going back to my browser, and I'm going to open the file. Okay, so I've written this thing called CSS thing is so cool, and the title came up here just as per our yesterday's session. So now let's try to see how we are writing CSS properties for it. Okay, creating a new file, completely blank. Now I'm going to write a property which says we are trying to give color to the entire paragraph section. Okay, so let's say we want the entire text which is put inside the paragraph to have a certain color to it. Okay, let's for instance, let's say we want to have the red color. Okay, so how are we writing that is, take the alphabet or the characters or the word, whatever it is, which is going to be put up in the opening and the closing of the angular braces, which is in our case the p tag. Okay, so take that tag name with excluding the angular open and angular close, write that. This is the syntax, guys. Okay, then you write a opening flower brace. Okay, hit enter and write a closing flower brace. Okay, inside the opening and the closing of the flower brace, whatever CSS properties you're going to write are going to apply to the p tag. Okay, so for instance, if I am writing here color colon white and apostrophe, this will give the entire paragraph tag white in color. Okay, but this is only working when you're linking this file to the HTML file, or you're writing the same code inside the head section of our existing HTML file. So when you're writing the same code in the existing HTML head file, that is going to be called as internal CSS. When you're having such external file like this and you're linking it to this file, then it's called external CSS. To be as put as in plain terms as possible. Okay, so the first thing we'll look at is how we can write our own internal CSS. So for writing style, that is, we're writing CSS, we write a style tag. Okay, and then we give out a type of it. Attribute is going to say text/CSS, and I'm going to close the style tag as well. Inside the style open and style close, I'm going to write my property, okay, which is going to be this. I'm just going to copy this and paste this. Okay, I'm just going to structure it now. All right. So now we've structured the whole paragraph tag to work like it's going to change its color to white. All right. So all you have to do now is go ahead and save it by clicking on Control S, go back to your browser and hit refresh. You see the whole text is gone because the background is white, but if I double click on it, I've highlighted it and the text is white in color. Okay. So let's go back to our code and just change this to red. Click on Control S to save it, go back, hit refresh. See the whole paragraph thing is in red. Now, the thing is, you have to remember that if I have another paragraph or 3 lines of paragraph, which says this is awesome and this is boring, okay, all 3 things, going back, hitting refresh, all the 3 things are in red. Okay, we didn't explicitly write separate colors for any of it, but anything that will be put inside a paragraph tag will be getting the color red. Okay, you don't have to explicitly go and write red for every line. All you have to do is take the tag name and then put it up here and it will be just applied to every paragraph tag. Okay, now if you're writing text randomly, like this is out of here, okay, and didn't put up that text inside the paragraph tag, if you have seen, going back, hitting refresh, you see that this text is actually shown like a normal text and doesn't have the color. The reason is because it is not confined between an opening and closing of a paragraph tag. Okay, and that is super clear. All right, so this is how you do it. Okay, so this is how you give colors to your existing tags using CSS. Okay, not just color, you can give a lot of things. Actually, you can define your font family. This is a syntax for it, and you just write, let's say you want to give it an Arial font, you just write Arial. Okay, now let's say you want to give multiple instances to it, you can say Arial and sans serif maybe. Okay, so let's go with sans serif. So now what we're telling the browser is you can either take Arial or take sans serif based on what you support. Okay, so this is something that you do when you are putting out options to the browser itself. Okay, you can do that. Go ahead, refresh. You see the entire text is now changed. Okay, the paragraph font is now changed. So this is how you can give font families. Again, and the mentioned in the previous sessions, all of these are called CSS attributes. You can just Google them and you will find a list of these that you can play around with. Okay, my try or my effort here is to help you guys understand how you can find these and how you can understand the structuring and writing of these code. Okay, now the next thing that we're going to write is, let's say I want to give out the same set of properties to my headings as well. Okay, so for that, let me go ahead and write a h1 tag. Okay, I've written a h1. I'm writing a h2 as well. Okay, I've written a h1 and a h2, and I'll say this is heading 1. I'm copying it. Sorry, copying it and then going here. And oh shit, 1 sec. Sorry about that. So I'm writing heading 2 here. Okay, so heading 1, heading 2, and what you're going to do is right now is just click on Control S to save it. Go back, click on refresh. You see that you got the text here, but it's just that they are not in the colors you wanted to. Okay, now let's go back and try to write the same set of properties that I wanted to be red in color and I wanted to take it these font types. What I can do is I can just go here and just say h1 comma space h2 comma space. Okay, so when you're writing such things, basically the name of the tags, and you're just differentiating them with the comma, it will just create this whole grid effect. And whatever is being followed up in the power braces will now apply to all of these guys as well. So now if we save this and run it, anywhere in the entire web page, if I'm writing a h1, h2 or a paragraph tag, those will be red in color and those will be coming up in these fonts. Okay, let me go back, click refresh, You see that the entire thing has fonts changed and the color changed as well. So this is how you can put up or group multiple things together or multiple attributes together and give them properties. Okay, so Raghava Rahul asks me, try cursive. So cursive again is just a font. All you have to do is open your Google and just google.com. Okay, and then just say fonts Google. Okay, and then you'll find this website called fonts.google.com. Okay, inside this, if you are able to find your cursive, okay, pretty much any font that you want, take the name of it. Okay, so for in this case, let's say you want this Muli tag or Muli font. All you have to do is just copy this, come back to your code, and then just add a comma and then write that. Okay, just say Muli and it will work. Okay, so again, the browser has to support it. In case it does not, then it won't. Yeah, so there is Sahiti who's telling another font which will work. So great. So essentially this is the workflow of it. You can go ahead, take any of these and then you can utilize them in your projects. Okay, so that's pretty much with respect to how it works. Guys, please mute yourself. Thank you. So yeah, so that's pretty much with respect to how you can write a basic CSS tags for yourself. I believe you guys have already been told about how you can use these color hex codes as well, right? So you don't have to just go with these solid colors like red, blue, white, yellow, things like that. You can get your hex code colors as well. Okay, so for that to happen, all you have to do is again open google.com and then just type in hex color picker. Okay, so hex color picker, if you just type in this, you'll find this color palette that comes up in your Google search. You can just play around here or here. Okay, you'll find the final color that you're getting. All you have to do is just copy this hex code here. Okay, there's this code called hex here. Copy it by clicking on Control S, come back in the space of the color, just paste it. Okay, just with the hashtag and the 6 characters that will follow it. Okay, so it's going to be 6 characters. If it's not 6 characters, it's not the color. Okay, now refresh and you'll have that color. So when you're working with solid colors, this red, blue, white, yellow will work. But if you're getting these kinds of typical hex colors, you can use these ones as well. So which are not solid, which are like having shades of it, you can use that. Okay, so there is Pawan Kumar who says, or directly cursive too works. So yeah, it depends on what scenario you are asking for, Pawan. Cursive does work. There are scenarios where it will work without pretty much anything, but at the end of it, it depends on the font. If your browser is not supporting a cursive font, it will not work. Okay, so for example, I'll show you another font that we worked on one of our clients. Okay, so this is one of our clients' website. So here you see that there is this whole cursive font. Okay, this is actual text that is put up here, but it only is supported in set number of browsers, and it might not be supported in certain number of other browsers. Okay, you can see this is completely text, and it is cursive, and this is only achieved with the help of a font. Okay, this font is called Southjaw, I believe. You can just Google that, and Southjaw, I think. Southjaw font. Yeah, you can take these kind of fonts, and once you get hold of these fonts, then you can achieve the kind of cursive that you're asking for. Okay, I hope I answered the question. And so yeah, so that's with respect to the adding of CSS to your files. Now that is only with respect to writing internal CSS. Okay, all of that you've seen is put inside a style tag, which is put inside a head tag, and only then it's working. Okay, now let's see another scenario where we are taking this entire thing for a toss, that I'm removing this, going ahead to a new file. Okay, deleting these style tag and only putting out the code. Okay, and we'll see how it works. Okay, so this is going to be an example of external CSS that we've not looked till now. Okay, so I'm going to save this file just with the code. Okay, just only barely with the code. I'm going to name it stylesheet.css, change the file type to CSS, that is cascading style sheets. Save it. Okay, now that I've saved it, and back to my code here, and inside my heading tag, all I have to do is link that file which I have saved as stylesheet.css. Okay, so how am I linking it? With the help of a tag called link tag, right? So again, link, the syntax is using a href attribute, and then just name your file here, which is stylesheet.css, and then give it a type, which is of course just like you've given it up in your style tag. Just write text slash css, relationship with the page that you're trying to put it up. That is, it is a style sheet, that is css sheet, right? So we call it a style sheet. Okay, so this is the syntax of writing or linking external css to your existing html web pages. Okay, understand it, see it, butify it, do whatever you want, but make sure you remember it. Okay, it has the link as a tag, href as a word. Again, remember, there is no closing tag for the link, it's just single tag, and href and the source of it. And then you have to write the type, whether it is text and css. And then of course you have to write the relationship with the help of the rel attribute. And then inside the double quotations, which is going to be the attribute value, you have to write the style sheet as a word. All right, so that once you're done with that, it typically is pretty much linked to your file. Okay, so now all you have to do is click on Control S to save this whole thing, go back to your browser, hit on refresh, and if you don't see any change, you're good to go, because we removed the entire css code and we've linked this external css file. And if the same thing is reloading, it means our linkage is perfectly fine. But let's say I'm just renaming the file to stylesheet1.css, which is not our file name, and I'm going and refreshing it, you see the whole property set is now gone. Okay, so I hope you guys got how you can write internal CSS and external CSS, how you can save the files with the .css formats, and how you can link it to the existing HTML page. All right, so you have any questions till now? Feel free to ask. If not, we'll move ahead to the next section. If you're not having any doubts, be vocal about it. Tell me you have no doubts. We can move ahead. Okay, great. So no one has no doubt. So we'll go ahead. Why did you give two font styles at a time? So Kirtana, as I've mentioned previously, the reason that I gave two fonts is basically different browsers support different set of fonts. Okay, so if you're talking about your iPhones and you have Safari browser, in your Windows machines you have Google Chromes or Firefoxes. So basically there are a set of fonts that are by default supported by these browsers. So essentially that is the reason that we give out multiple options, so that the browser chooses whatever it is compatible with. Okay, so Rakesh asks, what all topics will you cover in today's session? I am going to cover internal CSS selectors, of how you can use IDs in classes and all of that, and how you can write different properties for different paragraph tags with the help of paragraph and pretty much any other tags with the help of IDs and classes and CSS selectors, and we can call it a day. Yeah. So that's with respect to Rakesh's question. And Pavni asks, relation and href should have the same name. Nope, that's not at all the case. Relation has to have the style sheet as the relation if you're writing or linking a CSS file. The style sheet, the href value, however, is just the file name. I mentioned stylesheet.css just because it's something that I do. You can name pavani.css or kirtana.css. It's completely your wish. You can name the file pretty much anything, but the relationship has to be style sheet for sure. Okay, great. So won't there be any ambiguity if both fonts are supported? So that is completely on the browser, Kirtana. The browser takes up whatever is the first best supported one, and it renders that version onto the screen, right? So yeah, any other questions, guys? Okay, no more questions. Great. So we'll get started with another one, which is going to be about CSS selectors. Give me a sec. All right, great. So let's get started with the CSS selectors. All right, so there are a couple of selectors in CSS. Okay, the two major ones that we're going to look at is IDs and classes. All right, so you have to remember that there are multiple use cases of using IDs and classes, but what we are going to look at in today's session is only going to be with respect to CSS and writing CSS properties. Okay, very specific again. It's that it's only going to be used for CSS alone, but those attributes, that is those IDs and classes, can be used for multiple others. Okay, great. So I'll be telling about CSS selectors. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to talk about is having a universal selector. Okay, so for instance, you have your HTML page here. You have multiple tags here. Okay, you have H1, you have H2, you have P. You write 10 more others, like you have your anchor tags, you have your tables, and all of that sort. Okay, so I'm giving you an example that in a case where you have 10 tags, you don't, if you want to give a set of properties to the entire tags, you don't have to write h1, h2, h3, h4, p, a, and all of that to give the property set for everything. Okay, so there is a simple selector that you can use for applying all the properties to everything that is on the page, and that is called as the universal CSS selector. Okay, and the syntax for which is the one that you're seeing on the screen right now. Okay, it's just a star with the flower brace open and the flower brace closed, inside which you have your entire CSS properties. You just write the star, and the entire section, I repeat, the entire code, with irrespective of what tags it's using, will have these properties applied to it. Okay, so for giving you an example again, if you've seen, I have removed all the h1, h2s, and p tags, and I've just simply put up a star here. Okay, just going to click on Control S, and I'm going back to my CSS code. See, make sure that nothing is edited out. Going back to my browser, clicking on refresh. Now you saw, without actually adding any specific tag, everything that was put out into this has changed its font, its color, its shape, and pretty much anything associated, right? So that is pretty much with respect to CSS universal selector. Okay, you just have to use a star. Okay, now we've got that. The next one we're going to look at is how we can tap on IDs and classes. Okay, so this is called as a class selector and then as an ID selector. Okay, great stuff. So the next thing what I'm going to look at is, I'm going back to my code, and here I'll just write a class, or I'll give an attribute called class to my h1 tag. Okay, so for that to happen, all I have to do is just write the word class here, equals to, inside double quotations, give it any name you like. Okay, like literally any name you like. Okay, in this case I'm just going to type in Manish, which is my name. Okay, you can write in any name, and just to depict that I'm just writing my name. Okay, so that's the class name now. So now what you can do is you can use the same set of properties on multiple uh, tags. Without respect to tags in general, you can write properties with respect to classes or IDs, and you can give them to a particular set of these tags, and you can get those properties assigned to them. Okay, so to demonstrate that, what I'm going to do is I'm going back to my CSS code, and I'm going to type dot Manish. Okay, previously what we have done is we have written everything without any dots or anything in before the word started, right? So when you're writing directly the tag names, okay, when you're directly writing the tag names, that is the body tag or the p tag or the h1, pretty much anything on those lines, you don't have to worry about all these. Okay, so but when you're writing anything specific to class, okay, a particular class which is called as a class selector, okay, then you have to use the dot attribute. Okay, so this dot will play a key role in assigning these values. So I am just going to click on Control S to save it, go back to the browser, hit refresh. Now you see that the properties are only shown to this one. Okay, even though that this header is only h1 and it's only put to this. Let me show you an example of how it is done. Okay, go back to the code, and I'm going to write another h1 tag. Okay, observe that the first one is also a h1 tag, and the second one that I'm writing is also a h1 tag. Heading 1 repeated. Okay, I'm saving it, going back to the code, hitting refresh. You see that the heading came up, but the properties were not applied to it. The reason is because we gave it a class name called Manish. We've called the class with the help of our dot function. We've written the class name, and then we've written the properties for it. Okay, only by which I was able to assign all these properties to the h1 tag. Now here comes the cool part. I can just copy this class for which I've written the properties previously, go to my first paragraph, just paste it as an attribute and value, save it, go back to my browser, hit refresh. Now you see that the same set of properties are now applied to CSS ka first paragraph tag and the first heading tag. So now you're getting how you can club multiple different tags and show them or give them different or similar properties. I hope I'm clear, guys. If you're not understanding any of it, please feel free to ask. I'll be more than happy to repeat. Previously, when I've shown you h1, h2, h3, p, and all of that, I've shown you how you can generalize CSS properties using a type selector and give out properties which come under the same tag, the same set of properties. Here, I'm using a class selector, and I'm giving you only the things which I want to have those properties irrespective about the tags. Okay, so here I've given the same set of properties to a h1 tag and the same set of properties to a p tag. Okay, I hope you're able to understand the difference of it. Okay, great. Now I can also write one more metric here, that is I want these properties to be applied only to a tag which has the class name as Manish, but it should also be a paragraph tag only. Okay, so in that case I can write p dot Manish. Okay, so when I'm doing that, when I'm writing p dot Manish, what I'm telling the browser is that only the paragraph tags with the class name Manish will be having these properties. Okay, so if the paragraph tag is not having the class name as Manish, it won't be showing these properties. I've saved it. Let me go back, hit refresh. Now you see that there was only one paragraph tag with the class with the name Manish. So the properties have now only showed up to this. Okay, so this is how you write your class selectors. Okay, these are called class selectors, and the selector here is called the dot. Okay, I hope you guys got it. If you have any questions, if you want me to repeat, put it in the chat section. If not, I'm moving ahead to the ID selector. Sai Teja, you asked me to show again. I think I've repeated it once more, but do you want me to repeat it again, or did you understand? No understanding. Okay. H2 dot Manish work. Sir, will P comma H2 dot Manish work? Yes, it will. You can. No understand बोले तो क्या? Sai Teja, you're understanding, na? Okay, great. So yeah, that's great. So now that you've understood all of these with regards to the class selectors, I hope you are understanding the different use cases of it. Okay, the amount of restrictions that you can put up and the amount of flexibility that you can generate is far beyond what you can do with a simple inline CSS. Okay, so external CSS is the world's most preferred way of writing CSS. So get used to writing CSS in such forms. All right. Great. So the next one we're going to look at is ID selectors. Okay. So just like if you've written a class as an attribute and the class name as Manish in this case, we are going to look at how we can write another set of values called ID as an attribute and the value as, let's say, Sai Teja. Okay. So I've saved the ID as Sai Teja. And let's go ahead and now write properties for the same. Okay, I'm going back to the browser. Sorry, I'm going back to my child sheet here, and I'm gonna write hashtag Sai Teja. All right, and then I'm gonna write open angular brace, close angular brace. Sorry, open flower brace, close flower brace. Inside which I'm gonna write my properties. Okay, the color is going to be red, and I want the font size to be 21 pixels. I'm gonna save it. Okay, going back to the browser. Now when I hit refresh, okay, now when I hit refresh, what I'm expecting is that the h1 tag, the first one, of course, only because I've given the heading here and the ID is to this one, it will change. This is heading number 1 to red in color with a font size of 21 pixels. Let's see how that goes. Okay, you see that the font size went down to 21 pixels, the color changed to red in color. Okay, now of course, just as I've shown you in the case of the class selector where we put up p dot Manish, here also you can do h1 hashtag Sai Teja to apply all these properties to all of these ones as well. Okay, so that's how you can do it. Cool. So that's how your ID selectors happen. So with a hashtag, and you have a angular open brace, flower open, flower close, and you get the properties to apply for it. Okay, but you might be getting a question which says, sir, what is the difference between this hashtag and this p tag? Okay, this dot at operator and this hashtag operator. The point here is that in majority of the cases, we use class as an operator, that is the dot operator, to define our CSS properties, whereas the IDs are used in majority cases for defining our external JavaScripts. Okay, so we'll understand more about IDs in our JavaScript sessions, but as of this point, I want you guys to take away the fact that you can write CSS with the help of IDs as well, but the preferred mode of writing is going to be classes. All right, so that's pretty much with respect to this. Yeah, hash is for ID, dot is for class. Remember that as a, like, partify it, like dot is for class, hashtag is for IDs. Okay, just remember that. So that's pretty much with respect to class selectors and how you can do that. Can we write comments in CSS? Yes, you can. You can write comments in CSS. You want me to show it? Yeah, there you go. Pavani Durga has done that work for me. It's just a backslash star, and then you write your commented code, and then after you're done writing your commented code, you just again star slash and you're done. All right, so guys, if there is such small questions, see, the whole point here is that it's super hard to teach everything in a given timeline. So you guys should make a very good habit of googling, okay, so that you get all these answers for yourself, and it becomes easy for you. It's not that we can't solve it for you, but you have access to mentors only for a set number of period, right? But if you make it a good habit of googling the hell out of every doubt you find, it becomes easier, uh, just for the future purposes. Okay, so for the question you asked, Rahul, it's just going to be a simple Google search called CSS comments, and you'll find that there is this slash star operator that you can use, right? So yeah, it's just a good practice. I wish you guys do it. Yeah. So any more questions before we move forward? ID is not required, Navya. That's what I was telling, right? So IDs are used majority for JavaScript, but you can write CSS as well. So that is what I was trying to depict. Majority cases, we use only classes for writing CSS properties and IDs for writing JavaScript. Okay, just how you're writing external CSS here with the help of class in the same format, you can write external JavaScripting with the help of IDs. So that's majority use cases, but yeah, you can cross use both of them. So that was what I was trying to tell. Any more questions? No, Chaitanya, we can use classes for JavaScripts as well. What I'm telling is that class has more use case or more flexibility in the CSS space, whereas IDs have more flexibilities in the JavaScript space. They can be used in both places, but their use cases are preferred by CSS with the classes, and ID go with the JavaScript. It's just preference. It's not that it won't work. Yeah, great. So any more questions, guys? Great. So now we'll just jump in into understanding writing color in a more detailed manner. So previously, I've told you about two ways of writing color. The one that you see on the screen right now is two ways of writing color. The one which I've highlighted is the solid color writing method. The second way is the hex color method, which you can use. There is another method in which you can also use, which is called as the RGBA way of writing colors. Okay, I'll just show you how that can be done as well. So all you have to do is first go ahead, google.com, color hex code picker. Okay, same thing again, Google search, go to the first link, W3 schools. It's a good place. Find a color or a selector, whatever you want, just take a shade of the color. Now you'll see that there is this another small little thing shown as RGB right below the hash or hex operator. Right, so I see a couple of things happening in the chat section. I'll get to that. So hashtag, this thing is called as a hex code. It has 6 characters in it, and you have to write 6 characters. You can write 3 characters only in special instances where you have all 6 characters as the same. Okay, for instance, when you're talking about the color white, okay, the white color is basically 6 F's. Okay, FFF is the white color, the solid white. Okay, if such a case is there, then you can write hashtag and then only 3F, that is FFF, and the color will be taken. But when you're having different colors which are not solids, then you won't have all the characters same. Okay, then you have to write all the 6 characters. Let's say in this case, the blue that you're looking on the screen right now is a 0099FF, but if you're writing only 009, it won't fetch you the value. Okay, so when you're having all things common, then you can write only 3 characters after the hashtag and it will work. If you are having all 6 things different, then you have to hide all the 6 characters. Okay, that's with respect to writing hex color codes. The next one is of course the RGB color codes. Okay, so here what you do is basically RGB stands for red, green and blue. Okay, so if you have been through primary secondary schools, they might have told you that there are only three primary colors, that is red, blue and green, and you mix those colors up to get all the shades of colors that you look at. Okay, so for instance, let's say you take red and blue, you mix it up, you get a shades of purple based on the concentration of red or blue, right? So in the similar format, the whole color palette that you have in the world are based on three major colors, that is RGB colors. Okay, so that's the reason we have this way of representing color as well, that is the RGB color. You just copy this, go to our code, and then just paste it here. Okay, just for reference. Now I've saved that. Go back to our code, hit refresh. Now you saw that the same CSS color that we've taken up in the RGB has come up here. Okay, that's how you write an RGB color. Here you have to remember that the 0 is the amount of concentration that red has in this color. The second one after the comma is the concentration of green. Okay, that is 153 of green and 255 of blue when mixed is the output, the color that you're looking on the screen. Okay, it has zero concentration of red and this much of concentration of green and this much of concentration of blue, which is causing this color. All right, so there are cases where you might want to add a little bit of opacity. Opacity, how many of you know what the word opacity means? Okay, I see Kirtana, Pawan, transparency. Yes, yes, yes. Anyone else who knows what is opacity or what is transparency, if that's the matter? Come on, guys. We are 83 people and I only see 4 or 5 people every time. Partially visible, degree of color. Good job, good job. Great. So essentially, when you're trying to, let's say Rahman asked me a question, I believe previously, where he told me how can we write text over an image, right? So what if I say that I want an image over which I want a tint of orange, but I want the image also to be shown, and over which I want the text to be visible. Okay, so this is the typical scenario that I'm giving you. So in such a case, what we want is we want the color to be a little bit faded out. Okay, so in that case, with the RGB, what we are going to do is we are going to add another attribute called A. Okay, now the whole color becomes RGBA. Okay, now after the last one, give out a comma, space, and now you have to write a number between 0 to 1. Okay, it can be 0.5, it can be 0.8, 0.1, 0.4, anything. Okay, but it has to be between 0 and 1, wherein 1 stands for solid color, 0 stands for zero color, that is 100% transparency. Okay, so based on what you're putting out between 0 to 1 will define the amount of transparency that the color or the element that these properties are being applied to will inherit. Okay, I've put up 0.5, that is the color has to go down by half of its tempo. So I'm just going to go ahead and refresh. Now you see that the color went down by half of it. It became so light, right? Are you able to see that, guys? Yes, great. So now that you guys have understood how you can also make opacities level low, I'll just show you how you can change it to 0 and we'll see what happens. Okay, 0.0, and I'm just going back to the code, hit refresh. Now just because I've put up 100% transparency, it just went black. Okay, the blue color is gone to the good and we just have white color because it's 100% transparent. Now if I go back here and then just change this to 1, it won't have any transparency. It will show me a solid color, just like this one. Okay, so based on that, based on your requirements, you can just play around this between 0 to 1 and you'll have your transparency with you. Okay, so that's with respect to the colors and how you can do it. Okay, so till now we've understood what we can do with the text coloring. Now we'll look at what we can do with respect to background coloring. Okay, so the same thing, the attribute is going to be background hyphen color, and with the colon, and then I'm going to give it a solid red. Okay, gonna save it, going back to my code, hit refresh. Okay, this is what happens when you give out a background color to a tag or an element. Okay, so it takes out the entire spacing for it and it adds a solid color to its background. Okay, so how many of you know how you can change this solid red to this green? Write a line of CSS code which this line has to be replaced with to change the red color to this green. Okay, I'm just going to put it side by side. I want all of you to write it in the chat section. I want everyone, guys. Don't copy paste, dude. Come on, everyone's just good, good. So, Kirtana tried something different. That's amazing. RGB color, very nice, very nice. All right, very good, very good. I want everyone to participate. Great job, guys. Keep going. Good, great job. I hope everyone's contributed, and I hope you guys got the concept of how you can add different color schematics, right from RGBs to your hex color codes to your solid colors like red, blue, and blacks. Okay, so if you're done with that part, let's go ahead and see a little bit of text formatting with CSS. Okay, so we have looked at text formatting previously in the cases of our HTML, where we've looked how we can make it bold, italic, and all of that cool stuff with the help of our HTML tags, right? But we've not looked at how we can align text using CSS, or just add a font weight to it and just make it a little bit darker and things of that sort. Okay, so we'll see how we can use CSS and do all of that. So I'm just going to delete the background color as of now, and I'm going to write new lines of code. So what is HS1, sir? Where is that HS1, Chaitanya? Under RGB value. Okay, you're talking about the website. This one, HSL. Okay. This is another percentage level of doing the same color schematics. This is not at all widely used. The most common usage is with RGB, and the most amount of flexibility you have is also with RGB. So just go with that. Again, the reason that I'm not covering the HSL, and there are also these things called CYMKs and all of that in color schematics as well, but it's something that is too deep into the UI concept. Okay, cool. So here we'll be looking at how you can add font weights, font alignments, and all of that cool stuff here. Okay, so to change the font size, you have an attribute called font size colon, and then you write your font size here. Okay, let's say I want something like 40 pixels. I write 40px. Okay, the syntax is font hyphen size colon, then you have your font size, and then you end it with the exclamation. Okay, now you go back, refresh. see that this one's really big now. Okay, it's not like a usual paragraph tag. We bumped up the size to 40 pixels. Okay, so this is an attribute that you can use for aligning, or sorry, for increasing the file size or the font size to a particular number. All right, so you also have another way in which you can align these text elements, that is text align. And then you can say, since it's already on the left, we'll say right, and then I'll just save it, go back to the browser, hit refresh. You saw that the file, the text line is now aligned to the left. Okay, so in the same format, you have left, right, center, and justify. Okay, the three words in which you can write your text alignments. All right, so you also have these vertical alignments also, which I can tell you, but majority of the use case is not with respect to that, so I am skipping it out on purpose. Okay, but in case you guys still want it, you can feel free to ask. I'll cover it at a later point for you guys. All right, so the next thing that I'm going to talk about is text shadows. Okay, so you want shadows to show up for your text. You just have to go ahead and type text hyphen shadow colon, and then you have to type the depth of the shadow. Okay, so here I'm just going to type in 1px. Okay, and then I'm going to type in 1px again, and then 0px, and then a hashtag of 000,000, which is a hex color for solid black. Okay, now save it, go back, hit refresh. You see what happened? We got a solid black and we got a shadow with it. Okay, what you can do with this is either you can just take it up to a particular text form, which you're doing as of now, or you can assign this text shadow to a particular div tag and get this over with. Okay, so let's say I'm just writing it for a div tag, writing the text shadow here, and I'm putting up my entire body into a div tag. Okay, closing of div tag here, and not just the property of this, but I'll also say margin. Okay, I'm adding a margin here, which is going to be about 20 pixels. Okay, I'm saving it, going back to the page, hitting refresh. Now you saw that the entire section got the shadows of the text that we are looking at. Are you guys able to see that? Great. So that's how you add your text shadows. You can play around with these pixels densities to see how much of a shadow that you're concentrating on and in what directions. Okay, so that's pretty much with respect to the shadows part. Any questions here? No, great. So the next thing we're going to look at is how we can add different colors for different link stages. Okay, so I'm just going to write a href anchor tag here, and I'm just going to say Google here. I'm just going to write the href to be https://www.google.com. Okay, so this is the href that I've written right now. Saving it, going back to my CSS, and now I'm going to write a CSS code which is going to give the link different set of properties. Okay, by which I mean the link will be of a different color before I click on it, when I hover on it, once I've clicked on it. So it's going to be having different colors in different stages. Okay, so let's go ahead and write it. So anchor, and remember this syntax, it's anchor colon, and then you have link, and then you have open flower brace, close flower brace, inside which you write your properties, right? So here I'm saying the color of the link has to be red. Okay, just the link without clicking on it or doing anything with it. By default, it has to be red. Okay, and I'm just saying that the text decoration, okay, the text decoration has to be nothing. Okay, so the text doesn't have to be changed in any form. It just has to be a plain text with red in color. Okay, no underlining whatsoever. Okay, the next thing I'm going to write is a visited. Okay, so that is when the link is clicked on, what the property has to change to. So I'm just changing it to a color, not red, let's say black. Okay, so I've changed the color to black if I have visited the link. Okay, the next use case I'm writing is when I'm hovering over it. Okay, all of these words that I'm writing, link, visited, hover, all of these are predefined. I'm not making them up. Okay, all you have to remember is that these are the predefined words and you have to remember them. Okay, so hover, and let's say when I am hovering over it, I want it to be in blue in color, and I want the text decoration, however, to underline it. Okay, so text decoration, and I want it to underline it when I'm hovering over it. Cool. So this is how I want my links to be decorated. You also have another thing called link, a active, that is when the link is actually being clicked on, in real time, how the link should be looking like. So I have a color called green here. Okay, written everything, saved. Let's go back to our file, hit refresh, and see what happens. Okay, so this shadow thing is taking the vibe away, so I'm just deleting the shadow for now. Or you know what, I'll show you the commenting just as an example. This is how you comment out your CSS. So I'm just commenting it out so that it doesn't interfere in this demo. So you can see this is a link, and you can see that by default it's black and it's not underlined. So when it's in link form, it is by default black because we've visited this a couple of times. It's breaking in my computer, but by default it will be black. And because we've clicked on it previously in our previous examples, it is showing black and visited. But if you've not and you're writing it fresh, it will show in red. Okay, and when you hover over it, you're seeing that there is an underline and there is a blue in color. And when it is active, that is when it is clicked on, you saw that there was a glitch of green bit before it went into that page. You guys are able to see that? So you can observe it even better if you are like having this in a target blank. Yeah, so basically that is how when I'm clicking on it actively, you see that there is a green color that comes up. So this is where the link is active in nature. And then when you hover overing it, it is blue and underlined. And then once it's visited previously, it shows black color. Okay, so I can change these properties to whatever I want and to manipulate how it will look. Okay, so that is with respect to how you can play around with your links CSS properties. Okay, so that was pretty much it with respect to that. You have any questions with respect to that, feel free to ask. If not, there is one more major concept with regards to padding and margins, which I would like to cover in the CSS, and then we can call it a day. All right, so any questions, drop it in the chat. If not, I'll move ahead. Okay, so Gunashekar asked me, sir, can we change the text written over there after visiting? Yes, you can, but that has to be done with the help of JavaScript. You can't do it with the help of CSS. It's not like you can't do it, you can do it, but it's kind of complex. With JavaScript, it's very easy. So what you can do is, with JavaScript, I'm just giving you an example. You can just give it an ID. Okay, so you just say ID. Let's say ID is going to be called as change text. Okay, with JavaScript, what I'll do is get item by ID, get element by ID. I'll call this ID, change element content to this, let's say Yahoo, when clicked. Simple JavaScript and it will be changed. Okay, that's with respect to Gunashekar's question. Farheen asks me, how can we make the text move in some direction? So as I've, okay, you're talking in real time animation kinds of a thing, Farheen, or Farheen, or are you asking me in terms of alignments? If you can just repeat that question in that terms. Mark Q tag is, yes, that's one way of doing it. That's with HTML. So if you want like these scroller bars in your HTMLs, you can use this tag called mark Q tag. Okay, so mark you open, mark you close, and you can just write all of your text inside it, and it will go as if it's a train. Okay, so I'll just give you an example. So if you can see in the screen in the bottom, it just goes on animating like that. So it's a simple tag with MarkU. But yeah, if you want a typical animation scenario, then yeah, there is different ways of doing it. So could you explain alignment and okay, okay. Can you explain a visited? Okay, so Kirtana, a visited is typically where when I have clicked on the link, okay, once if I've clicked on the link and the page knows that I've clicked on the link, then it will show me that the color is going to be black. Okay, so since we have already clicked on this, it is showing me black in color. Okay, since I'm doing this second or third time, it's showing me that it's already visited. Okay, but if you are doing it in your computers for the first time, it will show you by default before you click on. When it is in its normal link form, it will show red, but when it is visited, it will show black. But when you hover over it, it will show blue with an underline, and when you click on it, it goes green. Okay, so that's the whole life cycle of it. Shouldn't it be refreshing when you refresh the page? No, it won't. So links clicks won't change based on refreshes that are by default taken up by the browser as already clicked. So refresh doesn't change that. With respect to any browser, you can check, it doesn't change. Yeah, so Fareen, alignment and animation. So alignment, as I've shown previously, you have this attribute called text align. I'm highlighting it on the screen. I hope you're able to see it. You can just change it to text align right, text align left, text align center, or text align justified if you are putting it up for a paragraph, and you'll have the text justified as well. So that's how you can align text. With respect to animation, I've shown you the MarkU tag. So this is the MarkU as a tag. This is the opening tag, and you have the closing tag here. I'll just put it up in the next line so that it becomes easy for you. All right, so this is the MarkU tag with the help of which you can create scrolleral animations like you have in a news portal. Okay, something that you're looking at on the screen right now. Cool. Any more questions? Great, great. So a lot of you are saying that you don't have any questions. That is wonderful. I hope you're not saying this just because of you're bored to hear it again. I hope you're actually understanding stuff. So the next thing that we'll look at is basically how we can assign uh, maximum heights and minimum heights to our web pages, so that it becomes easy for management on multiple screen sizes. All right. So yeah, let's go ahead and see how that's done. And after that, I think we can call it a day. Cool. So the first thing that you're going to look at here is the whole maximum height and minimum height, maximum width and minimum height concepts. Okay. So I'm just going into the style sheet here, and excuse me, I'll just have some water. Yeah, great. Thank you. Sorry for waiting, keeping you guys waiting. So yeah, so maximum height, minimum height is something that we're going to talk about. And to give you an example, let me go ahead and write a property for paragraph tags. Okay. So I'm just writing paragraph tag here. I'm opening the flower brace, closing the flower brace, inside which I'm going to write a property. Okay. So it's going to have something like min hyphen height colon, and I can say 10 pixels. Okay. And then I can say max height colon, I can say let's say 30 pixels. Okay, So I'm saying the paragraph tag contents can have a minimum height of 10 pixels, whereas the maximum height it can go to is 30 pixels. Okay. Now I've not changed anything else other than this in the code. Going ahead and refreshing it. You see that there is no much of a change on the page that you can see. The reason being, by default, these ones are actually in the 1011 pixel segment only. So you were not able to identify a direct change here. And this one's not changing because we already put up the CSS properties for Manish. Okay. So, but by default, you have these min height, max height, and you also have other properties such as min width, okay, and max width, okay, colon, and you can say another 30 pixels here, and you can also have another 10 pixel here. Okay, save it, go back, refresh. Now you see what happened. Now that I have changed the widths of it, the entire structure has changed. So the maximum width it can go to for a paragraph tag is about 30 pixels only, and the minimum width I'm giving it only is 10 pixels. Okay, so that's the reason this whole thing is gone bombarded to a maximum of 30 pixel in length. Okay, so if I change this max width to 50 pixels, let's see what happens. You see, it's still overlapping over one another. Now, if I change the minimum width to 50 pixels, let's see what happens. Okay, I'm playing around with the width. I'm sorry, the height part. So now you see that there is a lot of height difference between each everyone. Okay, so this is how you can play around with the maximum height and the minimum height you're giving to a particular tag or a particular instance. Okay, so you can play around with this. You can just take these elements and you can put up anywhere. So let's say you want to give it to only this particular tag, you can give it here. Okay, and you can save it, you can go back, refresh, and see what it does to that. Majority cases you might not be finding much of a difference with when you're putting that up for uh, can you please open the .html file for 2 seconds? .html file. Okay, here you go. But yeah, pretty much that is essentially the whole usage of the line height, sorry, the max height and max width concepts. It will take the line spacings also to a very different level. So you can also have line height as an attribute as well. So when you're having, I'm not able to show it at this point because it's too many characters needed for us to showcase that. You need a longer paragraph, but essentially if you are taking line height as an attribute, you can give it, let's say 1.2 em as a line height. You go back, you hit refresh, you'll see that there is a line height now, and you can observe it much clearer if you have like a longer paragraph. Okay, so when I'm, let's say, copying this, yeah, so now that I've copy pasted it so that it comes at least for 2 lines, you see that there is a line height that is there between one line to another, and that is something that can be controlled with the help of this attribute, which is line height. Okay, with the help of this you can play around with that particular aspect of how much spacing you can have between one and the other paragraph lines, or pretty much any other line. All right, so that is pretty much with respect to today's session. We've covered concepts of CSS, how you can link external pages, how you can write your own CSS. We've seen CSS selectors, how we can write with classes, with attributes, with IDs, the hashtag values, and we've also seen how we can write external CSS. We've seen how we can write internal CSS, all of that. Okay, any questions with today's session? Let me know what the attribute text rendering does. Didn't understand the question, can you please repeat? Any questions, please feel to ask, guys. If not, we'll call it a day for today, and we'll get back tomorrow. EM is, Rahul, is another method of, or is another metric of measurement. Just like I've said, PX is one metric of measurement. EM is also another metric of measurement for line spacings or for widths or heights or anything. So you can take the font size also to EM. Okay, so it depends on what parameter you want to use. I'm just showcasing all of them to use, so that you can choose based on your requirement. Everything will work fine in any environment. Okay, I hope that answered your question. And Pawan Kumar asks me, what is the role of text rendering attribute in CSS? So text rendering as an attribute is used as the word. See, basically in CSS, every word is pretty self-explanatory. Okay, so if you see anything that I've written till now, do you think it has a meaning outside its word itself? No, right? Because majority of which it's pretty much similar to whatever the word says. So if I'm saying color, it says it's giving color. If I'm saying font size, it's giving font size. Okay, in the same format, when I'm saying it's text rendering, it's basically it allows you to choose the text quality. Okay, so if let's say you're having large abundant amount of text on the screen, you can choose at which rate it's being rendered onto the screen. Okay, so that's pretty much about text rendering. It's basically a method in which you can call text based on speed of rendering, things of that sort. Okay, so that's text rendering. And Kirtana asks me, sir, how can we write text on image with the background color only to that text? So Kirtana, that is, as I've said, it's with regards to Z indexing. If you want me to showcase, I'll showcase that to you. Give me a sec. Okay, so there is this attribute, guys, called as the Z index. Okay, so per se, I am going back here. Okay, so here, if let's say I want to have a small, okay, just create a new div. Okay, so I'm creating a new div and I'm giving it a class name called text hover. Okay, and inside which I'm going to have a small paragraph. Okay, and the paragraph is going to say this is over a color. Okay, and I'm writing an inline CSS of style is equals to, okay, I have not shown inline CSS, right? So look carefully. This is the how you write inline CSS. It's style equals to, inside double quotes, I'm saying color colon white and semicolon, and this is how you do it. And inside my style sheet, I'm going to write a new dot text hover, and inside this I'm going to write my property. Okay, so what is that property going to be? That the color of the background has to be a solid color. Okay, so which is background hyphen color colon, let's say orange. Okay, now that we've done that, let me go back, refresh. This is how you can write over a solid background color. It looks like as if I've given a simple color text to that one, but no, it's not the case. You can play around with as much as you want. And if, let's say I'm just adding padding 20 px. Okay, this is how it look when you're writing over colors. Okay, and also there is another way in which you can do it, where you're giving this particular paragraph tag a Z index. Okay, let's say this comes under the style attribute only, so it's Z hyphen index colon, and then you can give the largest number possible. I'm saying 99, and the next, the color whatever you're putting up should be at a lower Z index value. So let's say 98. Then this will be coming up on top of it. Okay. So, but for what question you have asked, I think this will pretty much solve whatever you're asking. Sir, padding and margin, will you continue tomorrow? Padding and margins are something that I can complete right now. Let me do that, so that tomorrow we'll have time to directly introduce you to Bootstrap and get started with all of that. Please upload recordings. Yeah, Kirtana, there has been some issue because of the movement to Zoom. The file sizes are really heavy because it's like 2 hours and 1.5 hours of sessions, right? So it's are in the file sizes are in GBs. these guys are working on putting them together. So yeah, you'll get it pretty soon. Something that they didn't expect, it seems. So yeah. So padding margins, I'll do that now. Saiteja asks, what is the difference between span and div tag? So Saiteja, so essentially, dude, div is like the holy grail, godfather kind of a thing for these kind of scenarios where you're writing a lot of code inside a particular division. Okay, so if I have taken up the text over and I've put up some random uh, paragraph text inside it, okay, now I'm writing, this is a heading here, and going back, refresh. So here I'm just creating a whole cluster here. Okay, so what if I want only a particular element in this cluster to change its property? Then I'll use the span tag. Okay, so I want only the word heading to have a different color and not the entire heading. Okay, so the entire h1 tag can be black, but I want the word heading to have a different style, that is a different color. So I'll just write an inline css here which says color is red. Okay, I'm saving it, going back, hitting refresh. Now you see that the red heading is only red in color. Okay, so that happens with the help of span tag. So majority of use cases of span are going to be in this area alone, and div tags are used majoritarily for playing the like a wrapper class where you are having a lot of divs that you put up, a lot of code that you put inside a div tag. Sir, how to use auto resize divs based on viewport? Kirtana, that will be covered in the Bootstrap session, which is going to be tomorrow or day after. So tomorrow I'll see either if I have to cover more concepts of CSS. If not, we'll directly jump into JavaScript and Bootstrap. Yeah. So that's where I'll cover all of these auto sizings and scalings and all of that. Yeah, so I think there is one major concept, as rightly pointed out by Lavanya, that will help us close CSS once and for all. That is padding and margining. All right, so let's go ahead and understand that as well. So here, if you've seen in a flow, I have written up padding as well. Okay, so padding essentially means that whatever cluster you are inside, okay, whatever cluster you are inside. So in this case, we are inside a div tag. It pushes the contents of the div tag inside by 20 pixels from all four directions: top, right, bottom, left. Okay, everything. Okay, so that is how padding works. So it pushes things from outside to inside. Okay, but whereas margining is different. Okay, so I'm saying margin, same 20px, and I'm going to delete this padding. Okay, I'm going back, hitting refresh. Now you see what happened? I've just changed padding as a word to margin. Now what happened is the whole background, that is the whole border, is been pushed 20 pixel inside, but not outside. Okay, so if you want the wrap to be pull out outside, you use padding. But if you want it to be pulled inside, you use margin. Okay, I told it in as much as layman terms as possible. Now I'm just refreshing it. I have put out padding. Observe the difference. Here you saw that there is 20 pixels of padding given here, which is internal to it. But when you take margin, it is pushed down, not outside. All right. So that's the primary difference with respect to padding and margining. And also regarding the use case scenario of it, you have different ways of writing paddings and margin. There might be scenarios where you don't want padding from all four sides, right? So you have these attributes called padding top, where if I save it like this and hitting refresh, there is padding that comes up only from the top, and the left and right is gone to hell. All right. So then you have padding left, okay, where the padding comes up only from the left. Okay, and then of course in the same fashion you have padding right and padding bottom. Okay, so padding top, left, right, bottom. So that's how it works. Okay, but if you want to give those values in a single go, what you can do is you can write padding and you can write 0. Okay, mine. Oh god, where is this? Okay, so what you can write is oh my god, okay, 0 px space 20 px space 20px space 20px. Okay, let me just change this to also 20px and give you an example. Okay, so I've got 420pxs. Okay, so what this essentially tell me is that I want 20 pixel padding from all four directions. So essentially we got the same output what we would have gotten if you've written only 120px. Now the catch here that you have to understand is that this is in one order. Okay, so this the first one that you're seeing, the first 20 pixel is the top padding. Okay, so it is equivalent for you to write padding hyphen top 20 pixel, or you're just changing the number here, it is the same output. Okay, so if let's say I'm changing this to 0, saving it, going back, hitting refresh, observe that the padding from the top is gone. Okay, so essentially what it means is that the first one, okay, coming from left to right, the first one that you see is the top. The second one is you see is going to be the padding right. Okay, so it's in clockwise direction, guys. So the first one is top, the second one is the right, the third one is the bottom, and the fourth one is the left. Okay, so padding top, padding left, padding top, padding right, padding bottom, padding left. That's how the flow of it is. And if you want to give values to all four of them at once, this is how you write. All right, also there is another way of writing it where you're not putting 4 of these options and only putting 2 of these options. All right, so when I'm putting 20px comma, sorry, not comma, space 20px, going back, hitting refresh, you'll see the output will be pretty similar to having a single 20px again. Now what is that has changed here? When you're using only 2 instances, the value becomes top and bottom, left and right. Okay, so now we've combined 2 aspects into one. Okay, so the first one will become top and bottom, the second one will become left and right. So whatever value you give here will affect both top and bottom, and whatever value you give here will affect both left and right. You see, so both left and right and both top and bottom are affected if you're given only 2 values. If you're giving 4 values, it is in clockwise direction, that is top, right, bottom and left. And if you're giving only single, it takes up all 4 directions with the same equal value. If you don't want to do this method, you can always go back to writing padding hyphen top, padding hyphen right, bottom, left, all of that. Okay, so this is a simpler way of writing. Similarly, less the way we've looked for padding, you also have the same for margin as well. So margin, as you can see, as I've written it here, you have margin bottom, margin left, margin right, and margin top. And the same goes with the structure of writing it. So if I'm writing only margin and I'm writing 20px, it takes up from all 4 directions. If I'm writing 20px to 10px, it takes up 20px from top and bottom and 10px from left and right. And if I'm writing 4 instances of it, just like this one, you'll have top, left, sorry, top, right, bottom, right, left. That's how the cycle of clockwise work happens. All right. So that's pretty much about this whole padding and marginings as well. And if you have any questions with respect to this, feel free to ask. No questions, guys? Great, 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 great. So now that you guys have understood pretty much everything here, let me show you a bit about how you can write inline CSS once more, so that you get a brief understanding. I've just shown it very quickly when I was writing this example, but I'll walk you through once more. Okay, so the first tag is called style is equals to. Okay, so when you're writing inline CSS, remember that the opening of which will be an attribute, just like how you're writing ID and class and href and all of that. Style is also going to be an attribute, and the values are going to be the CSS properties. Okay, just like you write your link, your URL in the double quotations when you're talking about an anchor tag, in the same format you're going to write style as a keyword for writing your href, your CSS properties, and inside the double quotes after the equals to, you write your CSS properties. Okay, the syntax however is going to be the same as if you are writing it in inline CSS or in external CSS. Okay, so it's just going to be about the name of the property, that is color in this case, and then you have a colon, and then you have the color itself, and then you have an exclamation mark. All right, and then you have a follow-up. So unlike the inline CSS and external CSS, you won't be taking it to the next line. You just are going to follow it up one after the other. Okay, so that's pretty much with respect to inline CSS, internal CSS, and external CSS. And pretty much all major concepts of CSS were covered today. So there is one question which says, what is the difference in use between margin top 0 and top 0? Okay, by which you mean there is another attribute with the name top alone without the margin, right? Is that your question, Anjali? Okay, great. So top essentially, Anjali, is used as a metric from the top of your page. Okay, so it's directly from your entire page or your entire section inside which you're writing the property for. Okay, so whatever, if you're writing, let's say inside this class, because I've given the class the name hover text, and I'm writing all my CSS properties inside the hover text, whatever I'll write will be depicting with respect to this scenario only. Okay, so in this case, if you're writing margin top, it will take margin top only from this instance only, that is only this part of the code only. Whereas if you are writing top, okay, it takes up from the entire page instance and not just the one page instance. Okay, so it takes up the top from the entire page. Again, in majority cases, your top pixels and your margins or your paddings essentially will be in the same lines, the functionality of which will be pretty much in the same lines, but it depends on the use case that you're trying to achieve. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much with respect to that question. I hope I answered it. Any more questions, guys? Great, great. So have you had any problems with respect to doing yesterday's assignment? Were you able to do it without any problem, or did you have any hiccups doing it? No problems. Great. So I hope you guys are finding value in this session. Please do share your feedbacks with your program coordinators. It'll help us, take it even bit further. Thank you so much for attending today's session. We were close to 80 people when we started. We're almost 70 people now. That's really great. I didn't bore off many people, I guess, which is really cool. So yeah, thank you so much for attending today's session. I'll get in touch with you again tomorrow, same time. And so when we start JavaScript tomorrow, Sai Teja, tomorrow JavaScript, Bootstrap. In 2-3 more sessions, we'll close everything. So today is 16th, right? So today is what? Thursday, right? So we have Friday, Saturday. So yeah, so tomorrow JavaScript, day after Bootstrap, and we'll close the entire front end part, right? So I hope that answers your questions, guys. Any more questions, feel free to ask me right now, or we can discuss it about before tomorrow's session. Version 4. Bootstrap version 4 is something that we're going to talk about. Yeah. Anything else? Great, guys. Great, great, great. It was great. Today's session has been really good, I suppose. If you have still any more questions, again, feel free to ask. I'll be more than happy to help you out. And yep, thank you so much. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a good day.